At the start of the film, we saw a man walking alone, in a suburban street. Just a white car following him. Panicked, he starts to walk away. A man with a helmet attacked him from behind. He subdued him, put him in car, and drive off. Then the scene shift to 27-year-old Chris Washington. He is a photographer in New York. Chris's girlfriend Rose Armitage wants him to meet her parents. Chris asks if she has told them that he is black. Rose says that her parents has no problem with him. They are not racist. Rose takes Chris to visit her parents on weekend. Chris informs his friend Rod about his visit. He asks him to take care of his dog. Their car is hit by a deer. Police arrives and asks for Chris's license. Rose becomes angry as she was the one driving. She defended Chris and the cop leaves. Chris is impressed by this behavior of Rose. Chris is welcomed warmly by Rose's parents. Her father, Dean, is a neurosurgeon. Her mother, Missy, is a psychiatrist. Chris also meets house servants Georgina and Walter. Chris finds it strange that all servants are black. Dean says that they used to serve their parents. After their death, they kept them due to emotional bonding. Missy asked Chris about his parents. Chris told them that her mother died when he was a child. Dean tells him that they are having a yearly get-together. At dinner, Rose's brother Jeremy joins them. At night, Chris went outside to have a cigarette. He saw Walter running towards him angrily. Chris finds it strange and went inside. Missy noticed Chris smoking, so she offers to help him in quitting it. Chris is not sure if this will work, but decide to give it a try. Missy takes a teacup and stirs it continuously. Missy asks Chris how his mother died. He says she was hit by a car while returning home. He was playing video game at that time. He heard the accident outside his house but ignored it. He thought it wasn't real. Chris feels that he cannot move his body. Missy says that she has hypnotized him and now he is paralyzed. At Missy's prompting, his consciousness falls into a dark void she calls the sunken place, where he becomes powerless. The next morning, Chris wakes up in his bed. He thought that he had a bad dream last night. He goes out for a walk and meets Walter. Walter starts to compliment Rose. Then he asked what Chris was doing in Missy's office late at night. This confirms Chris's fear that he was really hypnotized by Missy. His desire to smoke is also vanished. Chris tells Rose about this, but she doesn't believe him. Guests starts to arrive for yearly gathering. Everyone takes keen interest in Chris. He receives strange remarks about his body. Chris meets another black man, Logan King. It is now evident that Logan is the same man who was kidnapped in the beginning of the film. Just like Walter and Georgina, Logan behaves strangely. He is married to a white woman 30 years his senior. Chris meets a blind art dealer, Jim Hudson, who takes an interest in his photography. Chris told everything to Rod. Rod advises him to leave the house immediately. Chris secretly tries to photograph Logan, unaware that the flash is on. The camera flash causes Logan to become hysterical. He rushes out at Chris, shouting frantically for him to get out. Rose takes Chris on lake to relax him. The party guests hold a silent auction where Hudson makes the winning bid, with Chris as the prize. Chris sends Logan picture to Rod. Rod is a TSA officer. He recognizes Logan as Andre Hayworth, a missing man from Brooklyn. He suspects that Logan has been turned into a sex slave. Chris tells Rose that they need to leave immediately. He then discovers photos of Rose with numerous black partners, including Walter and Georgina. He tries to leave the house, but Jeremy blocked his way. He asks Rose about the car keys, but she refused to give him the keys. Chris tries to snatch keys from her. At the very moment, Missy taps the cup and hypnotized him. Next morning, Rod calls Chris but gets no answer from him. Chris wakes up to find himself tied to a chair. Meanwhile, Rod, who has been trying to contact Chris and suspects foul play, goes to the police. But they dismiss his concerns as paranoia about sex trafficking. In a video call to Chris, Hudson explains that the Armitage family transplants the brains of wealthy white people into others' bodies to acquire their desired physical characteristics, leaving the host's consciousnesses trapped in the sunken place. Hudson clarifies that he doesn't care about Chris's race. He only wants his eyesight. He explains that a small portion of Chris's mind will remain intact, so he will not be gone completely. After the call ends, Chris noticed cotton threads coming off the armchair due to his scratching. He stuffed his ears with this cotton, as this will prevent the sound of the tapping of cup reaching his ears. Missy hypnotized him again, and he pretended to fall asleep. The surgery starts and Jeremy goes to bring Chris. When he unties Chris, he attacks him and knocks him off. Next, he goes and kills Dean. On his way out, he is attacked by Missy. He overpowered her and kills her too. Jeremy attacks him from behind and starts to strangle him. Chris subdues him and kills him too. Chris escapes in Jeremy's car, but Georgina throws herself in front of the car. Rose heard the noise and goes to check outside. Chris decides to take Georgina with him too. When she wakes up, she attacks Chris. Chris loses control and the car hits a pole. Chris is injured and Georgina died at the spot. It appears that Walter and Georgina has undergone brain transplant. They are actually Rose's grandparent Roman and Marion. Rose follows Chris and starts to chase him with a gun. He runs, but Walter catches him. Chris uses his camera flash to stop Walter. This frees Walter from Roman's control. He asks Rose to let him kill Chris. Rose, unaware that he is switched, gives him the gun. Walter then shoots Rose and kills himself too. At the very moment, Rod arrives to save Chris. He gets Chris inside his car. He said Chris should have listened to him. At this, Chris remains silent. He seems to be quiet in distress at what happens. Both of them then drives off and the film ends.